Today, I have something super special to share with you. I'm going to share with you a real English conversation. Do you remember listening to the stories your grandparents used to tell about when they were younger? It seemed like a different world. They seemed like different people altogether. It was fascinating. Well, today you'll meet David, who's passionate about storytelling, especially about his very adventurous teenage years. I'm sure you have things that you're passionate about as well, so it's a good chance to listen to our conversation and practice speaking about something you're passionate about too. Hi, I'm Vanessa from SpeakEnglishWithVanessa.com, and here I will help you learn real American English conversation. In this lesson, you're going to meet David. We'll have a conversation about his teenage years, and then after that, you will see my husband Dan and I break down some important vocabulary expressions that David used so that you can use them in your personal conversations as well. After the vocabulary lesson, you will hear a phrasal verb lesson where you will focus on an important phrasal verb that you heard in the conversation with David. And finally, after that phrasal verb lesson, we will focus on pronunciation so that you can speak clearly and confidently and you can express yourself and tell stories like David. To help you remember everything that you are about to learn in this special lesson, like always, I've created a free PDF worksheet. It will include every vocabulary word, those definitions, sample sentences, phrasal verbs, all of the ideas, and pronunciation points so that you can master this and use it yourself when you speak in English. You can click on the link in the description to download the free PDF worksheet today. This lesson with David is a short sample of my popular course, the Fearless Fluency Club. So if you enjoyed this lesson, I invite you to join us in the Fearless Fluency Club and finally speak English confidently, real English confidently. Our course member Ildiko said, "The course is fantastic. I like the most that you teach us real English." Not classroom English, real English spoken by real English speakers. Would you like to take your English to the next level? Today, this Valentine's Day week in February, is your chance to finally speak real English and save big money, of course, while falling back in love with English. I have a special sale for the Fearless Fluency Club, only 1 or 2 times per year, so don't miss this opportunity to join thousands of motivated English learners and save $100. Elaine from Brazil said that she joined the course to improve her English, but then something surprised her. What surprised me even more was the wonderful community and the opportunity to meet and interact with so many friends from around the world. Love it! So click on the link in the description to join the Fearless Fluency Club. And if you join this Valentine's week in February, you can save $100. Don't miss out, click on that link. Well, if you're thinking, it'd be great to join this course, but I don't know if it will really work for me. Well, this is your chance. Let's test if the Fearless Fluency Club can really help you to level up your English skills. The course uses the conversation breakdown method, which will help you to learn and use real English expressions, phrasal verbs, pronunciation, and have the confidence to bring them into your own conversations. This video is just a short sample. It's only 25% of a full lesson, and you get 5 full lessons when you join the course. But I would love to share this sample with you because I know you're gonna love what David has to say. A little note before we get started, David is featured in the advanced level of the Fearless Fluency Club. So if he speaks a little bit quickly or it's difficult to understand him, I recommend clicking CC so that you can view the full subtitles for this entire lesson. Of course, you're welcome to watch it again and again, and I'm sure after watching it several times, it will feel more comfortable for you. All right, let's test out the conversation breakdown method with David. Let's watch. Hi everyone, I'm here with David. And we're gonna be chatting about your life. So you've had a lot of interesting experiences that have happened to you throughout the ages. But I wanna ask you first of all, before all of that happened, where were you in life that you decided, I'm gonna do something new, and you mentioned go to Florida?
I was living in New Jersey,
Okay.
which is where I'm originally from. And I was in a rock and roll band,
Okay.
singing in a rock and roll band in the early 70s. This was in the early 70s. And the band broke up. And I had a Chevy van, which was customized, you know, and ready to live in, and a pocket full of money at that point, you know, from the band. And I said to a couple buddies of mine, hey, let's go to Florida.
Why not?
And so we packed the van up and we went to Florida. Yeah, I'd always wanted to go. I can remember when I was a kid going to visit my aunt and uncle, and I would go down there. It was kind of like a magical place for me, you know. Yeah.
Oh, did they live near where you ended up going?
They lived in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So, and back then it was not like it is now. It was,
bet.
you know, it was small. And
A lot has changed in Florida since the 70s.
especially in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale has gotten gigantic.
I bet. I
Yeah,
bet. So
yeah.
you
They just keep
decided-
going west and west and west, and they turn the cow fields into houses and shopping centers, you know. But yeah, back in those days, this was in the 60s, you know, and we used to go down and I'd say, oh, this is palm trees and manatees and all that magical stuff, you know, and the ocean. Of course, we had the ocean in New Jersey, but you know.
Not Florida.
No, it's not Florida. And so we went. So I went, and off we went to Florida.
With your buddies in your Chevy.
In my Chevy van. That's right.
Nice. And where did you guys end up in Florida?
Well, we went to Miami because we had a friend there.
Okay.
And when we got to Miami, he said, well, I'm going to Key West for the New Year's Eve celebration. You guys want to go? And so we said, well, sure.
Why not?
I mean, you know, we're young. I was 23, something like that, you know, 24. And so we followed him down there, and there was an area, and we went to Key West.
Okay, that's
West.
about as far as you can get, right?
As far as you can go, unless you're in a boat.
Yeah, especially considering Miami is really far from everywhere else in the U.S. And then Key West, that's even further.
Yeah, well, you got to get, there's a chain of islands. They call them keys, and each one has its own unique culture, I guess you could say. You know, each one, you go down Largo and on. They have, some of them are real tiny. There's not even really a town or anything in them. You just kind of cross a bridge, go over onto the key and
To the next
one. Yeah. And then, you know, some of the bridges are super long over the ocean. Very beautiful, you know. It's ocean's real. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we got to Key West, and we wanted to set up, you know, somewhere to camp. You know, so we asked around to the locals, you know, and they said, oh yeah, there's a piece of property, you know, a piece of land, it's undeveloped. Just take this dirt road, you know, go down this road and take a dirt road and go into the woods there. And so we went there.
This wasn't a campground. It's just
it was
land.
It was just land.
Nice.
What it was this land had originally it was going to be developed, and the EP and they had started developing it. So there was roads that went back in there, but there was also a lot of wild still in there. You know, mangrove swamps and. You know, woods and so on, because the EPA came in and said, no, this is going to be protected. It's the only piece left in Key West that's like this, and we're going to protect this property, so you can't build here.
Okay.
So consequently, there it was. So anyway,
Perfect for you.
yeah,
Perfect for camping.
yeah. So we set up, and we were there. You know, we put up our tent. You know, I mean. See, I had my van. I had the luxury quarters.
Yes.
They had a van. They had a tent. So, shortly after we got set up, probably that same day, if I remember correctly, the police came.
Oh.
They came by. A cop, you know, a police officer came, and we said, is this okay? Can we camp here, you know? Because we were told that this was okay to do this. And, and he said, well, I don't care. He said, I don't care. He said, but other cops might chase you.
Okay.
So he said, my advice would be to scour this piece of property. This is a police officer telling us this, and find a place to hide the tent. Find a place to hide the tent. So that's exactly what we did. We went out on an expedition on this property.
Nice.
And we looked. We walked all around. I mean, we were talking. I don't know. It wasn't a huge piece of property. I mean, a couple hundred acres.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
You can hide in that.
Yeah, and we found the nicest, most dense jungle that we could find. And we set up a home site there.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And that was the hidden spot.
And there it was. Yeah, there it was. There it was. And we they had these giant hibiscus bushes that would grow in Florida. They're wild. You know, I don't know if you know hibiscus.
Yeah, it's like that kind of.
It's a cultivated
flower.
plant, right? And they have but they have them wild in Florida, and they grow gigantic, and they grow the red flowers, and which is where they began. You know, that was the origin of that. And so we took a machete, a couple of machetes, and we hollowed out the inside of that bush so that I could pull my silver van into that bush and then pull from the stuff we cut. We got vines and we lashed them together, and we made like a door that went across the back end of this thing, and I would pull my van in and pull the door across, and then I would be totally hidden.
You made a bat cave out of hibiscus.
Yes,
that's amazing.
An hibiscus bat cave.
That is ingenious.
Perfect. Yeah, because the property was right behind the Key West International Airport. So we could see planes taking off all the time. So we had to just kind of be
on the sly.
Well, we were low key, yeah. But I mean, actually, we were high keyed, but because we had
drugs are not short supply.
No. Well, back then, yeah.
Sure. So you guys camped there, and how did it grow from there?
Well, you know, we set up the tent, and we cleared the area so we could, you know, there was an area that we could clear, and we, like I said about the van, and so we had that done, and then we cut a path, and what we did was we cut the path with switchbacks so that normal people, especially at night, couldn't find their way into the campsite.
So how did you enjoy that sample conversation with David? He's a very interesting guy, but maybe it was a little fast or tricky to understand. Well, I'd love to help you understand some important expressions that he used. Next up, you're going to see a vocabulary lesson where my husband Dan and I break down some important expressions that you heard in that short clip of conversation. This will help you to learn the most important words and focus on them so that you can use them. Let's watch.
Welcome to the Fearless Fluency Club.
Vocabulary lesson. Today, Dan and I, my husband,
hello,
we're going to be talking about some important vocabulary expressions that you heard in the conversation with David. So we're going to be explaining them. Dan's going to be giving some other opinions, other samples, and it's also a chance to hear a conversation between us about each of these expressions. So I hope that it will help you to remember them and just expand your English vocabulary. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. The first expression that we're going to talk about is actually two expressions. They're pretty much the same thing, so we thought we would combine them. And they are back then and back in those days.
Back in those days?
Yeah, so this is used to talk about some time in the past, but it's usually used when a time in the past is different than the present. So maybe the lifestyle was different or your experiences were different. So you're kind of comparing back then and now, or back in those days and now.
Yes, and it has to be part of your experience. So usually you would use this if you were telling a story. For example, David was telling Vanessa the story of his very interesting past. So he had the opportunity to say back then or back in those days quite a bit, because he was talking about a time that was very different than today. Back then we hardly wore shoes. We just walked around barefoot all the time.
Yeah, I think his life was very different than it is now. So the only real distinction between these two expressions is that in a business situation, especially a formal business situation where you're giving a presentation or you're just doing something that's extremely formal, you would not use that second expression back in those days. You could definitely say, back then, our company sold this much of our product. That's fine. You can say back then, but back in those days, it's just a little more casual. So I recommend not using it in those extremely formal situations, but both of these are beautiful to use. So I'm curious, when you were a child, was there anything that you did back then that you don't do nowadays?
Well, back in those days, we didn't have smartphones. We just read books and books. And okay, it wasn't books. It was TV. Well, for me, it was like... we had an old 386 computer. Look up a 386.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
And my dad taught me how to like get on there and try to play some games. I was always into games, but my parents wouldn't buy me a Nintendo back then. So, you know,
you also played outside
back
a lot.
then we played outside.
Yeah, I would say
all the time. That's true.
that childhood back then is much different than childhood nowadays. And I think that there is a movement, though, especially people our age who are having kids.
We're part of that movement.
Yeah, who want their kids to have a more outdoors, natural, yeah, kind of carefree childhood away from screens. Not eliminating screens completely, but just kind of having a similar childhood to the type of childhood that we had. So back then it was different, but now those times are kind of coming back.
Even further back then. I'm talking about my parents' childhood.
Oh,
that's the kind of childhood I want for my boy.
Oh yeah? Do you think
my boys, rather.
Do you think that's possible?
No, probably not.
I think that people's ideas about freedom of movement and letting your kids just roam around the whole city, that's not quite acceptable nowadays.
Not as many free range kids anymore.
Yeah, you probably need to live out in the country pretty far and have a lot of space to be able to do that. But that's just a cultural thing. All right, well, let's go on and watch the clip from the original conversation with David so that you can see how this expression was used. And because there were two, you're going to see two clips so that you can see how both of these expressions were used. Let's watch.
They lived in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So, and back then it was not like it is now. It was, it was small. And back then it was not like it is now. Back then it was not like it is now. Back in those days there wasn't too many of us that wore shoes anyway. But
to each his own if he wants to do that.
Yeah, back in those days there wasn't too many of us that wore shoes anyway. Back in those days there wasn't too many of us that wore shoes anyway.
The next expression is off we go, or we're off. And this is just a casual way to say we're leaving somewhere. But usually it kind of means it's exciting or maybe it's spontaneous.
Going on an adventure.
Or it might just be the start of something very exciting. So maybe you're about to go on a trip to Florida, for example.
Like David.
If you get into the car and you're all excited, you could say, and we're off. Or off we go. And it's just a casual way to say we're going and this is going to be fun.
Yeah, you can even add a little bit more to the end of that sentence and say, if someone asks, hey, where are you going? You could say, we're off to Florida. Or you could just say, if your friends are also going with you, all right, we're off, let's go. And it just means you're going somewhere. It kind of does imply this is exciting, this is fun.
Yeah, but it could also kind of mean there's some spontaneousness or a lack of organization. So if you ask, where's Vanessa? And you could say, she's off at Walmart.
Walmart?
That would mean that she's shopping, yes, but maybe she's taking a long time or she's looking at a lot of things. So it kind of has that vibe to it, but I'd say that's kind of a secondary meaning.
Yeah, it kind of implies that like you're lost out there, don't really know which direction you're going. Walmart's a little bit of a strange example, but usually we do use this for going on trips. So if you're about to go to New York City on an amazing adventure, you're about to go there for a couple weeks, you could say, or even a couple days, I don't know, you could just say, oh, and I'm off to New York, all right.
Do you think you would actually say we're off to Walmart?
if you want to kind of
You could just say it.
make it feel exciting. Sometimes we do this for
And we're
our toddler. If we're just doing something that's normal, like going to the grocery store, you kind of make it seem more exciting so that he gets excited, like, oh, all right, we're off to the grocery store. Maybe we'll find some blueberries. Maybe we'll see some samples and get to eat them. You can make it a little more exciting so that your kids want to do boring things. So you could use this. It kind of implies it's an adventure. All right, let's watch the clips so you can see how to use this.
No, it's not Florida. And so we went. So I went, and off we went to Florida
With your buddies in your Chevy.
in my Chevy van. And so we went. So I went, and off we went to Florida. And so we went. So I went, and off we went to Florida.
The next expression is and so on.
And so on and so forth.
And so forth. You're right. So the main expression that you heard in the conversation with David was and so on. And this just means etc. You're kind of continuing a list of things, but you don't want to list everything. So you say, oh, and so on. So you're just kind of mentally continuing that idea. What do you think, or how do you think you would use this?
Yeah, I think I would normally use and so on. And sometimes we use this together, back to back, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Especially if it's kind of a process. Maybe you're explaining how to cook something, and you're talking about how to roll the dough, and if at some point it becomes a little bit more obvious what the next steps are, then you could say and so on and so forth. Or if something doesn't matter that much how you're doing it, like you don't have to roll the dough this specific way, you could do it this way or that way. So if there's additional ways you could do something, you can say and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Or just and so forth.
I think you could apply this, like you said, to some kind of action that is obvious. Like if you're gardening and you have some, like we have some raised garden beds. And if you have 4 raised garden beds, you're going to do the same thing to each one. You're going to add the compost, you're going to add some soil, you're going to add some things. So you could explain, okay, this is what you need to do and put this in here. And then for the other beds, you do the same thing. Or you could say, so you add the compost, you mix it up, and so on. And you're kind of implying that they already understand what they should do next.
Right.
It's kind of obvious, so you just say, and so on. I feel like we are not as likely to say and so forth by itself.
That's a little more formal sounding, I think.
Yeah, we're more likely to just say and so on. Sometimes and so on and so forth.
Together.
But a little less likely to just say and so forth by itself. You might hear that, but it's a little bit less common. It sounds a little formal. And you can use both of these in business situations, but I think that you're more likely to hear and so on. All right, let's watch the original clips so you can see how and so on is used.
But there was also a lot of wild still in there, mangrove swamps and woods and so on. Mangrove swamps and woods and so on. Mangrove swamps and woods and so on.
The next expression is to scour, and this means to search thoroughly for something, or it means to clean very thoroughly. So, for example, for cleaning, you scour a dirty pan in the sink. You're rubbing it. But I think that this is more commonly used for searching for something. If you've lost something, for example, I was watching a hockey game the other day, as I'm wont to do, and somebody lost a contact onto the ice. And this was the worst situation because the contact is clear and ice is white. So all of the players were on their hands and knees scouring the ice for the contact.
Did they find it?
I don't remember actually.
That seems like kind of a
I think I saw a replay of it.
comical situation. It seems almost like an impossible task.
I know, I don't know why they would try.
Yeah, so you can use scour to talk about looking absolutely everywhere, which is the word thoroughly for something. So if you were in a store and your child runs away, well, you are going to scour the store until you find your child. You're not going to give up and just leave the store. Of course, you're going to scour the store and you're going to ask everyone, hey, help me scour the store. I need to find my child. So this is just to look really thoroughly. Like Dan mentioned, you might use this for cleaning something really thoroughly, but it does kind of imply like you're scraping really hard on a pan.
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
difficult.
crusty and dirty. And I think that this situation we come across less in life.
I would probably say scrub first.
Scrub the pan. Yeah, scrub the pan really hard, but it just also means scour the pan. So you could use it in that situation, but I think we're more likely to search really hard for something in our daily lives.
Yeah.
I scoured the dictionary to find the right word to use.
Good example.
Or, yeah, lots of ways we can use this.
I scoured the internet for Vanessa's course.
Oh, and you found it. Here you are. Well, let's watch the clips that you can see how the word scour was used in the original conversation.
My advice would be to scour this piece of property. This is a police officer telling us this, and find a place to hide the tent. Find a place to hide the tent. My advice would be to scour this piece of property. My advice would be to scour this piece of property.
The next expression is to hollow out. And technically this is a phrasal verb. We've got a nice verb to hollow and then a preposition, out, but we wanted to include it in the vocabulary lesson. So when you hollow out something, let's first talk about the word hollow. If something is hollow, what does that mean?
That means it's empty on the inside.
Yeah, so we can imagine like a log. When a tree falls down and then it decays, the inside of the log becomes hollow.
It might become hollow.
Yes.
If it's a hollow log.
If it's a hollow log. So the action to hollow out something is just the act of taking
You're
out
actually
the inside.
making it hollow yourself.
Yeah, you're taking out the inside. So you can hollow out something. You can also feel hollowed out. So how would you use this expression to hollow out?
Yeah, so I think we use it a lot physically, but it is such a specific word that I feel like we use it if we're making something. So hollow out since I have a child, Play-Doh comes to my mind. So you're going to turn it into a ball or a bowl. You could even say a bowl is hollowed out. So it's usually if you're making something.
We do use this physically more often than figuratively.
But you can also say you feel hollowed out, which means that some situation or experience made you feel empty, which is another figurative way to use that word, empty. So if you feel hollowed out, you feel like your emotions are gone. You just feel kind of sad, but you don't know why. Or, well, you might know why, but
Yeah.
it's kind of an unspecified negative feeling.
Yeah, I think that those words often are synonyms to say I feel empty or I feel hollowed out. If you say I feel hollowed out, it implies that something else did it to you. Because when you hollow out a bowl, for example, you are the one who's doing that action. But when you say I feel hollowed out, it implies that some person or some experience made you feel that way.
Scooped out your happiness.
Yeah, so if you broke up with your boyfriend, then you could say, I feel so hollowed out after we broke up.
Yeah,
that means
he
that
left me hollowed out.
Yeah, that he kind of took away your heart, scooped out your insides, and now you feel empty and lost. So it just kind of has that a little bit more of an implication there.
Yes.
All right, let's watch the clips. You can see how this was used.
So we took a machete, a couple machetes, and we hollowed out the inside of that bush. And we hollowed out the inside of that bush. And we hollowed out the inside of that bush.
The next expression is ingenious, and this just means very clever, brilliant, smart. And we usually don't say this about ourselves. It's not very humble.
It's not
and we
humble.
often don't even say this about other people because I think it's reserved for extremely special people.
Or like ideas.
Or ideas,
Not
or
people.
Yeah, I think if you're talking with somebody you know and maybe they write something or they build something that you think is really smart or clever, then you could say, wow, that's ingenious. Look at all the ways this works, or look how clever this writing is. It's really funny in a clever way.
Instead of, wow, you're ingenious, you're saying that thing that you created is ingenious.
Right, but if you use it for a person, again, I think we reserve that for Albert Einstein was ingenious, right?
So in the conversation with David, I said kind of a funny sentence, but he was telling me about how they created their camp and that they hid their tents and they were trying to be really secretive and that they made a cave out of, he said, like a hibiscus plant. And I don't know, he didn't come from like a natural background. He just came from New Jersey and he never really lived in the woods before. So I thought this was a pretty clever idea. He just came up with these ideas. So I said, that's ingenious, or that idea is ingenious, using it as an adjective to describe his actions or his creation, not necessarily David, you are ingenious.
Yeah. I mean, one could argue maybe Vanessa was being a little bit exaggerating.
Yes, we often use this in exaggerated situations.
Yeah, but she wasn't being like sarcastic. It was just, wow, that's really cool. Well, if you want to say more than cool, that's ingenious. That was smart of you.
Yeah, you could use this to say, wow, David, you're ingenious. And it's obviously an exaggeration. He probably
would have said, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, because
it's like,
he might be a little
really
humble.
Smart. Yeah.
Right, so we often use this just for ideas or for extremely clever, unusually smart people, or just as an exaggeration. But you might make the other person feel a little bit uncomfortable if you say, wow, Dan, you are ingenious.
Yeah. You'd be like, thank you.
Thank you, but yeah, not really, because that's extremely unusual to use for a person. All right, let's watch the clips so that you can see how I used ingenious. You made a bat cave out of hibiscus.
Yes,
that's amazing.
An hibiscus bat cave.
That is ingenious.
Perfect.
That is ingenious.
Perfect.
That is ingenious.
Perfect.
How did you enjoy that sample vocabulary lesson? Now it's time to move on to the grammar lesson, phrasal verbs. In this lesson, we will focus on one specific phrasal verb that is used in daily life, and I want you to be able to use it too. In the full Fearless Fluency Club phrasal verb lesson, I also integrate clips from movies, TV shows, and songs so that you can get more context, but unfortunately, here on YouTube, I cannot put those in my video because YouTube will ban my video, but I'm going to cut them out here on YouTube. You'll have to join the course to get all of the context. All right, let's get started with this phrasal verb lesson.
The first phrasal verb is to come by.
Oh, may I come by this evening?
Yes, and there are two meanings for to come by. This is the first one that we're going to talk about, which is simply to go to someone's house. And it usually is unexpected or just arriving or visiting someone's house.
Yeah, it's usually not a very planned thing or at a very specific time. And it's not necessarily somebody's house. You might use this at work if somebody's picking up something that doesn't have a very specific time. So when I worked at French Broad Chocolates, people would come by and pick up their cakes. So they didn't usually say come by at 3 o'clock. They usually said, come by sometime this afternoon, which gave it a broader range of time you could come by and pick up your cake.
Yeah, and would there be a difference if you had said, come and pick up the cake, or come by and pick up the cake? Would there be a difference in your mind with this?
Yeah, come by is more casual, it's more open. If you say come and pick up your cake, it sounds like a command.
A little more direct. I feel like sometimes phrasal verbs are simply just to be a little bit more casual. So you could choose to say, come and pick up your cake at 3 p.m. Or you could say, come by in the afternoon and pick up your cake.
Yeah.
It's just a subtle difference, but really it's just to be more casual.
It has the feeling that you shouldn't hurry either. Like even if you had a party and it started at 5 o'clock, if you said, come by around 5 o'clock. If you said something like that, it makes it feel a little more like it's not a big deal if you're late.
Yeah. I think in the US, often when we meet someone new, especially in the neighborhood, we often say, hey, yeah, come by whenever you want.
Or feel free to come by.
Feel free to come by whenever you want. And that just means come to our house and visit, knock on the door and say, hi, oh, I was just passing by, and then go. It doesn't have to be a long visit. Oftentimes people don't do this, but we say this as kind of a open-ended welcome. I think in the US it's pretty unusual for people to just come by unannounced. Usually we feel a little bit uncomfortable about that. I wish
Maybe
we didn't,
sometimes
but-
like next door neighbors, you have to be like a very close neighbor to really come by just whenever you feel like.
Yeah, you don't want to inconvenience other people. So maybe
Sure.
in your culture, it's common for friends and family to just come by whenever they
Yeah,
want.
whenever. Even family doesn't come by whenever they want to.
Yeah, I think they definitely would text
And
or
most
message
families
first.
in America, I don't know, maybe there's some families, to each his own.
Yes, to use a wonderful expression we talked about earlier. All right, let's go on to some extra material for this first meaning of to come by. In this extra material section for the first meaning of the phrasal verb to come by, we're going to take a look at 4 clips. One's from the conversation with David, and 3 are from TV shows. Let's start with David. David said, "The police came by," and we said, "Is this okay?" He was asking about permission to camp where they were camping, and he's talking about the police simply casually visiting his camp area. The police came by. They didn't run in and raid with their guns and yelling and a big to-do. No, instead they just came by, casually visited, and David and his friend said, "Hey, is this okay? Can we camp here?" So this is the first clip that you're gonna see from the phrasal verb come by.
The police came. They came by. A cop, a police officer came, and we said, "Is this okay? Can we camp here? Because the police came. They came by, and we said, "Is this okay?" The police came. They came by, and we said, "Is this okay?"
The second meaning for the phrasal verb to come by is to get something or to find something. And in this situation, it's used a little bit less commonly, I feel like, but you will definitely hear this. So if I said, "Wow, I came by this suitcase with $1 million in it."
Yeah, whoa.
Wow, what would that mean to you?
That would mean that you just randomly found this suitcase. And I think that's kind of the feeling of come by in this sense. It has to be a chance occurrence. And some people might ask you, even if it's not a chance occurrence, it kind of makes it sound like it is. So somebody might say to Vanessa, "How did you come by those earrings?" For example, if they really like her earrings and they don't know where she got them, they'll say it like that to make it sound like, "Oh, that must be a really good find."
Yeah, like I had to search for it for a while, or it was kind of a precious thing to find. Yeah, I think we often use this for things that are surprise finds, or also something maybe that's difficult to get. Like, how did you come by this great job offer? I can't believe it. I've been looking for this job for 2 years, and you just came by the job offer on your first day. So this is kind of talking about finding it, but also getting it. It has a similar idea of it's a difficult thing to find. It's a difficult thing to get. So you have to come by it.
And people use this relationally sometimes, right? A love like ours is difficult to come by. Meaning it's hard to just stumble or chance your way into a love like this.
Oh, that's so kind. So in this situation, because Dan's using it in the negative way, it's hard to come by our relationship or a relationship like this. That means that it's hard to randomly find a relationship like this. You have to work at it. So the opposite is working at something and diligently
Where you have to go
looking
on
for
lots
something.
and lots of dates.
Yeah, it's a process, a difficult process. It's not just something that falls into your lap and
But really, I could probably say that I came by Vanessa.
yeah.
Yeah, because we met the first day of college.
Yeah.
It was
But I think that
a chance meeting in a way.
maintaining a relationship for 10, 12, 13 years.
Yeah, but when people say come by, it's not about maintaining. It's about how did you find somebody. It's the
Okay.
first instance.
Yeah, so maybe it was easy to come by you, but to maintain our relationship, I think those of you who have been in relationships for long periods of time know that that takes a lot of effort. It doesn't
But
just spontaneously
I should
happen.
point out, though, that I wouldn't really say I came by Vanessa in 2005. That doesn't sound right. You would say it in that sense, in the positive sense, for items or things, not really people. It's more common to use it in the negative sense, right? It would be difficult to come by a relationship like ours again if we broke up, for example.
Sure. So talking about coming by a relationship or coming by something as opposed to a person. Sure.
Was that phrasal verb new for you? I always want to teach you something new. Remember that in the full Fearless Fluency Club, you will learn 5 phrasal verbs per lesson. There are 5 lessons. And here you only learned 1, but it's a good sample. Now let's move on to the pronunciation lesson. We're going to take an in-depth look at a sentence that uses a vocabulary expression. So this will help you remember the vocabulary expression, but also be able to imitate American English pronunciation so that you can speak clearly and comfortably in conversation. Let's watch.
My challenge for you is to try to speak out loud as much as you can during this lesson. It's great to hear my voice saying it naturally, but it's even better if you can hear your own voice speaking with me, repeating when I say to repeat, speaking with me at the same time. And after each sentence at the end, before we go on to the next one, I'm going to be pausing so that you can say the sentence all by yourself and really use everything that you've learned. So please be as active as possible. I believe in you. You can do it. All right, let's start with the first expression or the first sentence that we're going to focus on. We're going to listen to it in the original clip from the conversation with David. Listen to it. We're going to break it down, and then at the end you'll listen to it again, and hopefully you'll be able to understand more and you'll be able to realize why it sounds the way it does because we've practiced it together. All right, let's watch that first clip.
They lived in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So, and back then it was not like it is now. It was, it was small. And back then it was not like it is now.
You just heard the expression back then used in the expression. Back then, it was not like it is now. Back then, it was not like it is now. Let's break down this short sentence, and I hope that you'll be able to pronounce it as naturally as possible. Let's start at the beginning. He says, back then, it was. It was. Do you hear it was? There's no T sound that's clearly pronounced here. If you've been learning with me for a while in the Fearless Fluency Club, you know that this is quite common in English. The final T in a lot of words becomes a stopped T. That means that your tongue creates the T shape in your mouth. Your tongue is at the top of your mouth, but you don't let that final puff of air come out. So when you say it, you don't say it. Instead, it was. And this word was has a lovely Z sound at the end. It was. Can you say that with me? Let's combine it with the first 2 words as well, which is our key expression, back then. Back then, it was. Back then, it was. Back then, it was. And then he uses the stop T again with the word not. Not like. Not. So your tongue is stopped at the top of your mouth when you try to say that final T, but you don't let that puff of air come out. Say it with me. Not like, not like, not like. And for the final 3 words, it is now, there's a special linking that's happening. Listen carefully to what that T at the end of it sounds like. It is now. It is now. Does it sound like it is now? No, instead this T is changing to a D sound. This is quite typical in American English that a T between 2 vowel sounds is going to change to a D. And we often do this because it's simply relaxed pronunciation. It makes it easier. Making that puff of air for the T is a little bit extra work. So instead, we're going to slide into a D sound. So try to say that with me. It is. It is. And the word is going to have another Z sound at the end. It is. It is now. It is now. It is now. All right, do you think you can go back and say this full sentence? We're going to talk about which words are emphasized, but I want you to remember all of those stop T's, linked T's, turn to D's. Let's do it. Back then, it was not like it is now. We're going to be emphasizing back then It was not, emphasizing the word not, like it is now. So we've got kind of three parts here. The beginning, back then, not now. So let's imagine a lovely wave. Back then, it was not like it is now. We're emphasizing the beginning, the middle, and the end of this sentence. Let's try to put it all together. Do you think you can say it with me? I know you can. Let's do it. Back then, it was not like it is now. Back then, it was not like it is now. Whew, there's a lot going on here. Let's speed it up a little bit, and then I'm going to pause so you can say it by yourself. Back then, it was not like it is now. Back then, it was not like it is now. Whew. All right, your turn. Take a deep breath. I'm going to pause, and I want you to say this all by yourself. Go ahead. Great work. All right, now we're going to listen to the original clip, and I hope that you'll be able to hear each of the different words that we talked about, also the different linking that we talked about, and it will help your understanding and listening skills to improve the more that you know about these specific pronunciation concepts. So with this lesson, yes, you're improving your pronunciation, but you're also improving your listening skills because these sentences are extremely fast. The clip is so fast, but when you break it down and you realize, oh, that's a stop T, oh, they're linking that together, you're going to be able to just understand more. A whole world will be open. All right, let's listen to the original clip.
And back then it was not like it is now. And back then it was not like it is now. And back then it was not like it is now.
Great work! Are your pronunciation muscles warmed up? I hope so. In the Fearless Fluency Club, along with the vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and conversation lessons, you'll get access to the MP3 versions, full subtitles, PDF transcripts, so that you can study while you're cooking, driving, or even sleeping. Each model includes a special story segment to help you remember exactly what you've learned. The story is a fun one-page combination of everything you've studied in the module. Vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, everything's combined in this story. You can listen to it, repeat it, even memorize it if you want. Don't miss the story about David. It is quite hilarious. Fearless Fluency Club student Heli from Mexico said, "This is the best course that I've ever had. I like the way you teach, and now I feel confident to talk in English. Wonderful." In the Fearless Fluency Club, you will also have access to a community of thousands of motivated English learners so that you can practice speaking and grow your confidence together. A lot of members speak together on Skype, Facebook, or Zoom on a weekly basis, sometimes even daily. It's a great way to make friends around the world and practice English at the same time. Plus, I host weekly live-streamed lessons in our private community group so that you can stay motivated each week and you can ask me questions directly. Click on the link below this video to join the Fearless Fluency Club and finally speak real American English today. And of course, make sure to join this Valentine's Day week so that you can save $100 and fall in love with English. Well, thank you so much for learning English with me, and I'll see you again next Friday for a new lesson here on my YouTube channel. Bye! But wait, do you want more? I recommend watching this video, which is another sample of the course, The Fearless Fluency Club. You will meet Alexandra, who is a wedding planner, and you will hear some very interesting wedding planning secrets. I recommend watching this video, and I'll see you there. Bye!